Welcome to the Rogue Bogues podcast with Mike Procopio and Andrew Bogut, two guys that put the canceled in cancel. Here's your host, Andrew Bogut. Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go. All right, bro. And new NBL champion, bro. Come on, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. The canceled champion, Andrew Bogut.
Big week. It has been a big week. A lot going on.
Brother.
Thank you very much. Still feeling a bit of those drinks from after the game, as you just opened one. But a great week in the NBA, man. There was some good games. And what we want, we've got 2 Game 7s, which these assholes in the US don't think about little old Australia. One of them's at fucking 4 a.m. Thank you very much, NBA. So I'm not waking up for that shit. I have to watch that replay. But a lot going on NBA-wise. Let's get right into the playoff review. We've got a few teams knocked out. So we'll discuss the series and then where these teams are going. But Miami versus Philly, we both got one right, bro. 4-2 for Miami.
Nice.
I think, the whole Embiid being out early, I think that really cost Philly. And I think it just fucked up their flow. He's in and out of the lineup. One game it's the Harden show or the Maxey show. And then you've got, Embiid coming back into the lineup and then obviously demanding touches, so that changes things. So, flow is very important in playoff series, very, very underrated. But anyway, Jimmy Butler, he's been fantastic. And I just, in a world of analytics and a world of three-point shots being very valuable, he's kind of the anti-analytics, in my opinion. But he doesn't shoot many 3 balls, and when he does, they're not at great clips. But 27.5 a night points, 7.5 rebounds, 5.5 assists, and just solid. And I saw some comments from PJ Tucker that he made that before he got to Miami and before he played with Jimmy, I thought he was just all right. I thought he was a star, but he was just all right. And after playing with him, he's a gun. He just gets it done for us. He's a grinder. He plays both ends. So pretty interesting. PJ's played with obviously some very, very talented players in his career. Obviously always been as a role player. He was in Houston, Milwaukee. So to hear those comments about, and you generally hear that from a lot of people that have played with Jimmy. And now he's got his warts. He does get fired up at times, as we saw, but awesome. Max Strus came on late in that series, really big. He was 11-6 for the series, so not eye-popping numbers, but he had 39 and 21 in the last 2 games combined. For a guy that was essentially a two-way guy, right? At one point, and came in and was huge for him. Miami, so many defenders to throw it at Harden. That's what impressed me. They had so many guys they could put on James Harden, change the matchups. Then you got Bam with his help off the ball and length. Jimmy help, like Oladipo got some minutes at Harden. Vincent gave Vincent, picking him up full court, making him work to bring the ball up. I thought that was very, very important for him. Like I said, Joel out, they never recovered. Tyrese Maxey was their leading scorer, pro, which was interesting. I know Joel got hurt, but 20.2 a night. Embiid was second with 19.8. I thought Harden was pretty bad this series, or for the playoffs, in my opinion. But this series specifically, he was 18, 6, and 7. And most of the time you think they're very good numbers, but 4.8 turnovers a game and 40% field goal percentage, and didn't get to the line as much as he usually does. Only 6 odd times a night. Usually James Harden to be successful, 10 plus free throws a night, and he's usually having a night. But we got some shit, pro. The Tyrese Maxey versus Harden thing we spoke about last week was deemed fake news, pro. So we had someone tweet us that, it's fake news. He just had to go see Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell was calling him. Well, I'm like, well, he sat next to Sam Cassell first. Why did he move? Anyway, we took it in stride. We said, okay, fair enough. But last game, the same thing happened. Tyrese and Harden got into it on the bench. So I don't think it's conspiracy theory anymore. I think there's some tension there. I think it comes down to, if you watch a few of the James Harden ISOs where he's between the legs, behind the back, step back, Tyrese was off the ball, you could see the body language, the hands going up in the air, like, what the fuck are you doing? That was interesting. Embiid again, pro, has gone at his teammates post-game for a second straight season. Quote on James Harden, everyone expected the Houston James Harden, but that's not who he is anymore. He then went further on to say that he was more of a playmaker for us and we wanted him to ratchet up the scoring load for us when we needed it. But he continues to take jabs at his teammates out the door, and then heavily complimenting Jimmy Butler as well. somewhat a slap in the face to Tobias Harris and maybe a few other guys, but that was interesting as well. But what was your take on the series, and give me your thoughts?
Yeah, just like we talked about, at the beginning of the series, without Embiid, for the first couple of games, it really set the tone for the whole deal. I just didn't expect them to really put much of a fight up. I mean, what it did help is Maxi's, value, because he really played well. I mean, he really showed that he could carry the load to be somebody's second or third best player and, be able to score, regularly and be consistent. James Harden really, obviously this didn't have much of a series, compared to what he usually does. And I just thought Miami just was too much. I mean, Miami getting value from guys like Max Strus, and, you get Strus, and you get even guys like Gabe Vincent gives you minutes. Dwayne Dedmon gives you minutes on top of the other guys, obviously the Butler, the Adebayo, the heroes, but it's just amazing that they just continue to get value out of those other guys that either second round, undrafted, and just sort of castaways that they could just sort of put on a path to sort of help a high level team win. And I just didn't think that Philly showed much consistency. And that's a huge problem, that he couldn't guard anybody. When Embiid came back, he obviously gave him some help, but it was just too inconsistent with the whole group. And look, their bench wasn't very good. They didn't have the shooting they needed. Guys didn't step up the way they needed to. And again, that just shows value. When you're missing somebody like Embiid, your best player, then that's sort of like 30 plus minutes that somebody else could step up. And that really shows you true value in the league. And you obviously just nobody really stepped up besides maybe, I think Tyrese Maxey, gave it a great effort, and it just wasn't enough. And yeah, it's just a shit show. Like, great players like Embiid, they're going to be, sometimes you could have class with it and just sort of save it, especially when you lose a series and you're pissed that you're out and you're ultra competitive. Like, you're going to say some shit sometimes. Kobe was like that. MJ was like that. Maybe not to that effect in the media. He might have probably did it behind closed doors, but it's just, that's what it's going to bring out. Losing brings out a lot of this in people, and it brings out frustration. It brings out feelings. And, look, the stuff that he said about Harden was pretty true. I mean, he wasn't what he was in Houston. His body's like, when guys like that, when their body starts taking a hit, and look, when you're young enough, you could have a bad body and still be really good. And he did, but that shit takes a toll. All the late night stuff, all the miles that he puts on his body, and then stuff off the court.
He can't get to the hoop, pro. He literally can't get to the hoop anymore. He can't get.
No, he can't.
And that's killed his game. Like, the step back was so valuable. He's so valuable, a valuable tool in his arsenal, because you were like, shit, he can get to the hoop. He had that floater. He had that lob guy in Houston with Capella, and then he could get to the basket and he doesn't even attempt to get to the basket anymore. And I think that killed him. Like, they just sat on that step back and we're like, no, we're gonna make you get into the paint, and he just doesn't have that step anymore.
And look, he can make bad shots. He was one of the best bad shot makers or tough shot makers in the league in the last 5 or 6
NBA
years.
history. Yeah.
And he doesn't shoot really, like, you think about it, how much of an offensive weapon he was, and he's never really shot like huge percentages from three. Now in volume he makes them, but like, it's not like he's this efficient player like that. Now he'll score every night. He's consistently a scorer, but it's not like he shot these amazing stats from the field, like, especially from three. He'll shoot like 35, 36. I think he shoots 36 for his career. So it's not like he's like 42 from the three. And, he can get to the line. He can drive it to the basket. He's a great finisher. And he could just make these amazing shots. And that's the thing. He's just inconsistent shooting it. But I'll tell you what, like, you saw that in Oklahoma City, how much of a great passer he was in limited time that he played. And you saw some of it. A lot of it was stat chasing at times throughout his career, but he has great vision. He can definitely be a playmaker. But now that he can't get to the basket like he could, and I don't think his body could regenerate and do what it needs to do, I think it's going to be on a steady downwards, not spiral, but it's going to be on a downward, trajectory for sure. And they got to figure out what they're going to do here. And they're sort of like fucked. They're sort of like, this is the team you're basically going to have, unless you're going to deal Embiid, which they're not going to do. And they spent all their assets on this team. Getting, Tobias Harris, getting, James Harden. They drafted Embiid. So, they drafted Maxey. So it'll be interesting how they just sort of retool this team going forward. And look, I thought that Miami played very well. I think they were consistent. They guarded, they moved the ball. Jimmy Butler was outstanding. And Jimmy Butler is one of those guys, look, you want to hate him all you want. Great. That's fine. But if that fucker plays, and he plays hard, and he plays hard every night, and he brings it every night. I don't think every top 10 player in the league brings it every night. This guy brings it every night, and he could put up that 28 and 8, any given night, and he could stop you on the other end. And he's a motherfucker to deal with now. And yeah, I don't know if they have enough scoring to win a championship. That's
where I'm at too.
That plagued them 2 years ago, and I think it's going to plague them now. They just don't have another guy. Tyler Hero. If Tyler Hero wants to step up and be the player that people think he is and he thinks he is, he can't be averaging 14 and a half in a fucking series. He's got to up it, especially they don't have that second scorer. Bam's never a 25-point a game.
He's a role player scorer. He's a role player scorer.
I'll give you 18. Tyler Hero's the only guy on that team other than Butler that could really get him. And he could probably get it at a higher clip shooting the ball. I think he's a better shooter than Jimmy. He can't do the other things Jimmy can't, but he needs to really, look, you could have a bad series. Everybody's entitled to one. But if he really wants to go forward with this, he's going to have to give them 22, 23, 24 a night. He can't be settling for 14.
Yeah, and then you got the Duncan Robinson thing as well, 90 million sitting on the bench. But the one thing about James Harden, just to circle back, was I saw an interesting comment saying that the fact that Harden went out like that in Game 6 with the potential Game 7 in Miami where he could have went to South Beach tells it all.
They said it affected their economy by at least $500,000 a night. So yeah,
but that tells you everything. If he had a chance to go back to South Beach and he still couldn't get it done, that says it all. Do you think? I felt like Embiid looked deflated in Game 6, and some people have put it down to the MVP announcement. Congratulations to Nikola Jokic, by the way, all-time trophy acceptance video. Pro, did you see that?
I didn't see it. No, I got to check it out.
Wow. Yeah. So he's on his farm in Serbia.
I love it. Love it already.
The whole Denver Nuggets staff flew out there. Mike Malone, I think a few of the trainers, strength coach, whatever. And he didn't know they were coming. He was just out. So he's got a horse farm, right? He's got stables of horses, and he was out on a horse and cart. So he's got this little kind of racing cart that he sits on, takes the horses out, and he's coming back to the barn with the horse, and everyone's there. So he's on the back of a horse cart, and then realizes everyone's there to surprise him, and Serbian music playing in the back. It was just so non-superstar Nikola Jokic, like just awesome. I loved it. It was just raw, real. It wasn't streamers and fucking confetti flying everywhere. There was horse shit in the background. It was great. It was awesome.
Can we talk about that for a minute? Like that whole fucking post MVP social media bullshit that you have to deal with. Like, first of all, who gives a fuck who wins MVP? Whoever wins it, wins it. If it was Embiid, if it was Jokic, like people start saying it's racist. Some people start saying it's like,
I didn't see those ones.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of that going on. That there should be new people that are voting for this, that the media shouldn't be voting for it. That it should be players.
I agree with that. I think it should be coaches, strictly coaches, because I think the media, we've seen Bill Simmons' comments about certain players. Like, I agree with that there are favorites with media. Players is too, there's guys that get into rivalry. Like, Booker's not voting for Luka and vice versa, probably, right? Just based on this rivalry now. CP3 is not voting for Steph Curry. Like, so there's rivalries with players. As much as people want to say there isn't, and it comes down to the competitiveness. So, like, I'm not going to vote for that guy because he's better than me, but I don't want him to be better than me. I think coaches are the best to handle it because, the way they do it in the NBA is actually pretty good. There's votes that go after the game. You go from the coaches and you go 3, 2, 1. 3 votes for this guy, 2 votes for this guy, 1 vote for this guy. You have to vote. You can't vote for your own players. And you put your votes in after every game. And I think you tally them up at the end of the season. That's the fairest metric. All this other stuff, it can be influenced by social media, it can be influenced by media talking. Like, ESPN talks about LeBron every minute of the day. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, that can influence voting as well. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be MVP. So I think, I agree with you. this was one of the harder years to pick, and you can't go wrong either way. But it just felt like, Joel's definitely a little bitter about it, and maybe some people might say rightfully so. But it looked like it affected his play, and there were rumours, well, not rumours, this is confirmed. They said a shoot around on the day, he wasn't talking to anyone once he found out. He went in his kind of shell. He was kind of pissed off. It's like, dude, you got a playoff game to get to. You know what I mean? That later that day, like that's not. That basically then says that was on your mind and that's all you were worried about. Like, and that doesn't rub well on teammates of yours,
Yeah, I mean, you're only human. I understand it. Look, in a perfect world, he shouldn't really give a fuck. But look, the world we live in, especially today, that they're going to get affected by it. It's going to impact them. And yeah, and in a perfect world, it shouldn't. He's one of the best players in the league. He's a final 2 for an MVP. You win it, you don't, you don't.
Yeah, you're the leader, pro. You're the leader of your fucking club going into a game 6.
Agree.
And if you're deflated and your body language is shit at a fucking shoot around, it doesn't rub well. He looked defeated. Even in the game, man. Like I was watching the game, I was texting a friend of mine watching the game. He's a big Miami fan, and I'm like, he's deflated. That first half was awful, right? And he just didn't look like. Even in Game 5 in Miami, he just didn't look like he was moving up and down the court. He was jogging. It just. I don't know.
Why wouldn't they announce it? Why wouldn't they announce it after the playoffs? Either before the playoffs or after the playoffs.
It's gotten later and later every year, hasn't it? It's gotten later and later every year, has it? Or has it just been? Well, I guess the David Robinson Hakeem one was conference finals, wasn't it? But I thought generally they announced it like after the first round. But it seems like it's
that's the thing. If these guys are still playing, you should just wait until either do it in between. Like that week that 4 or 5 days between end of the season to the playoff first round, like let them get it out of the system that way.
I agree with that. Because then you can do the celebrations on court. And generally most MVPs are at least in the first round, right? Like we'd have to look up. I don't think there's been one that's not been. And has there been an MVP that never made the playoffs? I doubt it. StatMuse have to let us know that.
Yeah,
but I highly doubt it. I'd bet the under on that. But yeah, I agree with you. Just get it done. But the NBA loves those talking points. They love all the attention with it. And I mean, yeah, I just think it somewhat affected him. I don't think it changed the dynamic of the series. But like, if you're the star player, you can't, they're looking at you as
you can't.
And it just seems like then that's what you're worried about. You're not worried about the Sixers winning. You're worried about where's my trophy. And it's like, that's not going to rub well. But anyway, congratulations to Jokic. I thought it was a very hard pick out of those two. I thought it was a coin flip. I've been on record saying it. I would have given it to Jokic based on he just set so many record numbers. And, there's things coming out now to say, Embiid should have got it because of this metric. And the big one for me, and I've said it from the start, is when you look at the on-off numbers for Jokic, when he's on the floor with Denver and when he's off, it was the biggest disparity in the league. So when he was off the floor, they'd lose, they'd be like, I'm making this up, but it was like minus 14. And when he was on the floor, they were like plus 10, right? So it's a 24-point disparity with him off the floor versus on. And that's with all the analytics, that's a good one because it tells you his effect. And then obviously being the first player in NBA history with those crazy numbers, what was it, 2,000 or 2,000 points, 1,000, something along those lines. Refer back to a couple episodes ago because I probably screwed that up. But yeah, I think you can't. How can you then say, oh no, that wasn't deserved? It was still deserved. Those people arguing, Denver's a small market, it shouldn't be him. Blah, blah. I was just like, man, like I didn't see the racist ones, but it doesn't surprise me. And I think it was a coin flip either way, man. Like you can't shit on him. He had a historic year, and with a team that
they're both great players.
That wasn't great. Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I thought it was great. Yeah.
All right, so you think so? We know Philly are. We'll just finish with this real quick. We know Philly are pretty hamstrung with what they can do. They can re-sign their own players, but where's their future from here, pro? Like, what do you do if you're the GM there?
Look, you're going down this far. You might as well just finish it. You might as well just say, "Fuck it, this is my team." Daryl Morey. It's like me with like Kobe and stuff like that. Like when you're that involved with a player and you believe in that player so much, you're gonna go down with the ship with them. And it doesn't matter what anyone tells this guy. This guy's his Michael Jordan, and he's gonna go down with him. Analytically, what he did for him. Look, if there's no James Harden, there's no Daryl Morey, right? Like, he sort of anchored that offense and that style that he wanted to play. analytically with the threes and layups and things, and he embraced it. And look, it made James Harden hundreds of millions of dollars. It made Daryl Morey relevant as a GM, and he loves the guy. So the only thing they can do is they could try to get off, Tobias Harris. Maybe you stretch him. I don't know what you do there. No one's giving you, Harden could be a free agent. So I don't know what you're going to do there, like sign and trade. Who's giving you much for Harden? So I don't think that's going to work. So you gave up all these assets to get Harden. You gave up Ben Simmons picks, and you gave up, Seth Curry and Drummond, who's whatever. But I think that, look, you gave up all these assets. You got to go with it. You got to fucking, you came this far with it. You got to, because they're so strapped financially. They're so strapped what they can do. Their other players really can't give you much value if you try to trade them. What are you going to get? You could trade Embiid if you want to. I bet
that's my question for you. Would you think he asks out?
He's
Mr. Philly, but
he's Mr. Philly, and then you got super max, implications on the line with that. If he gets traded, he can't get it. So, you're probably like the best deal you can get. I know Miami really wants him. You could probably do Adebayo and two first rounders. Probably get you that. Maybe you can get you Duncan Robinson, and not that you would want him, but like Duncan Robinson, Adebayo, and two firsts. That's the only. And
my point is more around your point of Morey being all in with James at all costs.
Yeah.
Does Embiid just say, you know what, like I've given this process a chance. I want to go somewhere and new scenery, and maybe join up with another superstar and see how that goes. Does he ask that, do you think, or does he just stick it out?
With NBA players these days,
never know,
Bogues, I think, you never know. You never know. And I think that it's like Russian roulette with these GMs and owners. Like, you don't know how your superstar is going to wake up that morning, and what he's going to think. I want out. I want to stay. Well, you never know it. It just keeps on going up and down. You can't trust any of them. You can't trust any of them when you ask them, look, are you happy here? What can we do for you? They'll be like, oh yeah, everything's cool, man. And then an hour later, Woj is saying that the guy wants out, demands a trade. You don't know. If I had to guess, he would probably stick it out because he knows he's got more value, than James. I would think that if you ask 29 other GMs, they would say Embiid over James. You ask most fans, Embiid over James. You ask Morey, probably Harden over James. Harden over Embiid. So it'll be interesting what happens there. I say you could look, it's all about spin, and this is what you do. You fucking lie to people on a daily basis. So you spin it and say, look, we got him. He was James is a little fucked up. We'll get him right this summer physically. We got him a trade deadline. Now we'll have a training camp. We can get these guys playing together. Everything will be on track. Everything's good. And that's how you sell it. And I think that's sort of how he's going to do it.
Yeah, it will be interesting. But I think, they've probably gone as far as they can. That's what's crazy. They went through that whole process. But let's not forget, they were a Kawhi, crazy shot on the buzzer from being in what many people tip would get them through to the finals. They'd potentially beat Milwaukee that year. But, that three bounces of the ball really changed their, I guess the emotion Embiid showed after that. I think they knew that was their chance squandered, right? It's a funny league, and only one team can win it. That's the beauty and the brutalness of the NBA. But let's move on to Golden State and Memphis. Chippy physical series, as we know, Pro. Some injuries out of it, some hard fouls, a lot of talking back and forth. Dylan Brooks basically, coming out and saying that this is the new dynasty. Well, pump the brakes there, fella. You're out of the playoffs and you haven't been close to a final, so I wouldn't put the dynasty label on just yet. But I noticed that he said that, and I was scratching my head at that. For Memphis, Ja averages 38.8 and 7 until his injury. When he went out, Memphis went back to that balanced attack we saw in the season. They played very well without Ja at times, and they punch Milwaukee in Game 5. Let's be honest though, Golden State put the cue in the rack in that second half and just let them get out to 40, 50. They didn't really care, and you just knew they were already, that veteran team was already regrouping. During the game, they were already regrouping for the next game, thinking about what we're going to do, this and that. I think Memphis's future is in fantastic hands with Ja, Bain, Jackson Jr. and Brooks. I think young, complementary players. I think they're, the thing that I would do with them is maybe another veteran. I mean, a guy like Iguodala, funnily enough, would have been huge for them. Just the veteran leadership. But I think bringing in a veteran guy kind of like that would be really good for him. Golden State's balanced attack, Steph 26 a night, Clay 18, Poole 17, Wiggins 15, and some great defense and key possessions. They're really, really balanced right now, scoring-wise. Draymond was good for him also in Game 6, finished with a really big line. The Game 6 Clay showed up. I picked this, actually. I thought he'd have a really big Game 6. He had 30, he was 8 for 14 from 3. Was awesome. But did you know Golden State's turnover rate in Game 6, bro? 23%. 23% turnover rate, and they still got it done. It's amazing. When you see that, a lot of them were live ball turnovers or just throwing it out of bounds. Like 23%, basically a quarter of your possessions are turned over, and they still not comfortably, but they still won that game by 10 plus. That's demoralizing if you're Memphis, because you're like, shit, what else do we have to do? But Golden State expected to get through this. I think Memphis fought hard. They still need a bit of consistency, in my opinion, and we saw that in the first round with the Minnesota series. They're really hot and cold and up and down, and that's a sign of a young team that probably young and dumb, which can be a positive, can be a negative. They're young and dumb, where they just, the bull, the hard-headedness, we're just going to keep doing this, and they'll get down 20 up, 20, that doesn't matter. So I think getting a few veterans in there, maybe one or two more that can actually help them. I think Adams is a good presence for him, but I think they need another complementary guard that's a veteran that's been there before. Just to steady the ship at times will help them. But that's kind of my take on that series, Pro. As to be expected, I think we were both 4-2 for Golden State, right? Unless you picked Memphis, if I'm incorrect.
No, I don't think I picked Memphis. I think I picked Golden State to lose in the round before that. I think I picked Memphis this round. Look, I think Memphis is very good. You've seen these young teams come and go. Not come and go, but sort of try to build themselves up. I've seen, Seattle Supersonics when it had Gary Payton and Sean Kemp, when they were sort of on the verge of being really good. The Denver Nuggets was young. They ended up beating Seattle in the 90s.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
So Oklahoma City, when they had those three guys, that almost beat Kobe in 2010. You see these great teams. You just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the trajectory of these teams. It changes, week to week, month to month, day to day. One day they're all happy. Then in the summer, you hear some report coming and this guy's wants out. You never know. So for now, yeah, they're very, very good. I do worry about John Morant as far as his body versus his injury stuff. I mean, he gets nicked up from time to time, and I do worry, especially about how explosive he is. Sort of plays like that Iverson, probably more athletic than Iverson, obviously, right? And he just, there's so much
D Rose,
there's a lot of D Rose in him with that. I just worry about that. But look, they got so many good players, like they got John, and then they've got all these like really good high-level role players. Jaren Jackson Jr. is probably an all-star level player. I don't know if he's an all-star, but he's right there. And then you got obviously Brooks and Bain. The thing about it is Tyus Jones is probably going to cost you 15, 18 million bucks a year to keep. And, so if you lose guys like that, sometimes especially a good insurance policy for Ja, I think Jones is a very good backup in the league. Probably could start for some teams. And, you're gonna lose that. But I mean, they got most of their guys under rookie deals. Like Jaren Jackson got his extension kicking in next year at 28 million. You got Ja under his rookie deal. You've got you got Bain under his rookie deal. So you've got all these guys, a lot of these guys under their rookie deals. So it'll be interesting what they do going forward. For Golden State, I mean, it's just another notch in their belt, man. I mean, they're just putting it together when they need to put it together. A lot of people talk shit about the being down 50. It is a little weird though. Like this team could win a championship, right, and lose by 50. And it's not like they lost by 15 or 18, but by losing by 50. And Draymond talking about it, say, look, they got us. Like what are you going to do? You got to regroup, and that's just what we do. And I get him on that. It's just a little strange with that.
What was crazy, Pro, was if you look at the combined stats for the series, Memphis, based on that game, had like most of their players plus minus were in the plus. They still lost the series. You don't see, I just noted that you don't see it very often. So out of 6 games, like most of their players were in the plus, and you still lost the series because you lost by, what did they lose by 38? But it happened to us, pro, with the Sydney Kings. I know it's NBL, but my second season went under Will Weaver. We won game 1 at home against Melbourne, and then went to Melbourne. They beat us by like 50. I think it was 40 or 50. Like destroyed us. But we grouped up, I think in the third or the fourth quarter, and we're like, don't worry about this, just get through this. I mean, it was a circus in there. You got, people doing backflips and juggling balls and, that whole circus, like just rubbing it in our faces. The guy on the MC guy was killing us. And we just said, let's regroup. We've got one more game and it's at home. And we came back and won it. So it is an interesting thing when you do get punched by that much, how you bounce back. And, credit to Golden State. That's championship merit. They're not going to, just because you beat them by 61 game, they're going to come back at you, and they did.
No doubt. And that's just mental toughness. I mean, some teams could beat the Bulls one game in a series, back when Michael played, and you got to come back. They'll just come back and make adjustments. Same thing with the Lakers with Kobe. It happens. Like you punch them in the face, and we talk about that almost weekly, in the show about, it's all about, if you want to be a pro, it's all about forget about all the good stuff. What happens when you get punched in the face? What are you going to do next day? Is your routine going to change? Is your attitude going to change? What are you going to do to get ready for it? And most players can't deal with it, and they can. I think for them going forward, it's all about, in this playoffs and going forward, it's all about continually developing Jordan Poole and Kuminga and see where they can go with those two.
DNP'd last night. Mike Brown didn't play him. So he's been in the rotation under Steve and didn't get in it. And shout out to Kevon Looney, by the way. Comes out and has 22 rebounds after he said that he took it personally, that they kicked their ass on the boards the few games previous, and comes out with 22, a Dennis Rodman line of like 4 and 22 or whatever it was. But yeah.
It's unbelievable he's only 25. It seems like he's been around the league for 15 years. He's been around for a while.
And he's just the ultimate role player. Like he doesn't say much. What do you need me to do, coach? I'll do it. Plays 30 one night and 10 the next. You couldn't tell with him. He's an awesome soul, awesome person. I really enjoyed playing around him, and just a perfect role player for that team. Yeah,
for sure. And it's interesting, Bogues. I mean, they've got financial issues as far as like what they're, strapped to what they can do going forward with like Draymond and Clay and Steph's contract. And now you got Poole coming up after next year. Like, what are you going to do there? Because obviously he's going to fetch $20+ million a year. Like you're already in the luxury tax big time, and it'd be interesting what they do going forward. But look, like with those 3 guys plus Poole, and if Kuminga could turn into anything, that plus you don't know what's going to happen with Wiseman. Hopefully they could deal Wiseman for something of value, and they could just add to it. Because as you just got to keep retooling that roster around those 3 best players to see what you could do. And they still got Wiggins around. It'll be interesting what they do. They got Wiggins one more year at 33.6. But
could Wiseman get to that? Could Wiseman get to that Jaren Jackson Jr. type play, you think, for Golden State in the future? Like, as he's similar kind of players. Wiseman a bit more inconsistent from 3, but do you think that's his ceiling, a JJ type?
I mean, the problem is Wiseman's played enough, he's played as many regular season games as Jaren Jackson's played in the playoffs this year. Mm-hmm. So you can't keep the guy healthy.
Gotcha, yeah.
So like he couldn't stay healthy in college. He can't stay healthy in the pros already. But to me, I think he's Dwayne Dedmon, like maybe a souped up Dwayne Dedmon. And Dwayne Dedmon, not right now, but Dwayne Dedmon maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I think he could be a solid starter. I think Jaren Jackson's a borderline all-star. So I think that's where I differ between those 2 guys. I think he could be like a face-up shooter, a roller. I don't see him as this fluid, big-time athlete or anything like that. I don't know. I mean, people talk to me about him being like a LaMarcus Aldridge. I don't see that, but again, I haven't seen Wiseman a lot because he hasn't really played, so it'll be interesting to me with guys like that, Bogues. Again, we don't live with them, so we don't know. Maybe people could tell you that's around there. So I don't know. I could only tell you what I know by just watching. I don't have any intel on the guy. But for me, if I'm that team, I'm going to like soup that guy up play him in a stretch, let him put up fucking numbers, and then trade him for the best assets that I can get. Picks, another player that can help us, something. Because people, I think the less he plays is actually better for him because everybody, I would say 25 teams in the league sees that he's got value. And I think that you sort of load that up and then you trade him out. Unless you really think, forget about what you're telling the press. Behind closed doors, if they really think he's got value and they're not lying through their teeth to themselves about the guy, then you keep him. And maybe he's your starting center going forward. I just don't see it. I see him as a solid starter. I see him probably an upgrade from Looney if you could keep him healthy. But
the challenge is though he's a young player, so he's going to want to try and do more than what they need him to do.
Sure.
Because he's trying to get himself better and play for a contract eventually. So whereas Looney's content with his role. So that's the conundrum teams get in with younger guys. It's like you got Steph, Clay, Jordan, Draymond. We need you to do this. You stay in the dunker, set a shitload of screens of possession, be real good for us defensively, and grab as many rebounds as you can. You're not going to really touch it much. You're not going to really be overly involved in our offense. And if you're a young guy and you're Wiseman and you've got guys in your ear, in your camp, your agent, your friends, you can do more than this, man. You can get in your bag. That's usually the problem. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's going to be his problem and the Warriors' problem of how do we develop this guy enough to either move him or keep him long term whilst getting him to buy into playing a role. And that's why they make the big bucks. You got to figure out those decisions without overly hindering his development, but without overly hindering your chance to win more championships. It's tough.
Yeah. So, it's not easy.
Not easy. Anyway, so I think we both agree things are looking bright for Memphis. They do need probably some more veteran leadership in there, a bit more kind of calm and consistency at times, but they definitely have a chance to continue to progress, and we'll watch that space. Game 7 Fiesta, 2 Game 7s tomorrow. Shitty times for me, but I'll try to get to that second one. But we will start with Phoenix and Dallas. It's been a great series to date. The Booker versus Luka rivalry has continued to grow. They're getting chippy with each other and talking shit, and it's what you want to see. It's what you want. You love to see that, whether they're friends or not off the court. I doubt they are, but even if they were, that's what you pay your good hard-earned money for. You want to see a boxing type bout on a football field or a basketball field. You don't want friends, not even friends, but people, hugging and kissing before the game and laughing and smiling. You want to see this, and it's worth the price of admission. The question is, can you go past Phoenix at home in a Game 7? I mean, it's over 80% towards a home team in NBA history in playoff series. I think in the finals it's even greater. CP's been average, I think, at least post the first 2 games. He had an okay first 2 games and didn't need to do a lot, but shit, he's been. And what for him, the thing that tells you is dismal is the turnover rate. He just doesn't turn the ball over generally, and he's 14, 6, and 5 a night in this series with just under 4 turnovers, but just struggling. They've moved away from him being the primary ball handler at times. I think Alvarado wore him down. I really do. I think he's still looking for that kid when he's playing against Dallas. But Booker's carried the load for him. Booker and Aiden have been solid for him. Booker's 26 tonight, Aiden with 18. So, yeah, CP3's got to have one of those Game 7s for them to. I think they'll at home. I'm still going with Phoenix. I picked this 4-3 to Phoenix. I just don't think that. The odds are in Dallas's favor, but if anyone can do it, it is Dallas. I mean, Luka is the Dallas Mavericks. He's 32.3 a night, 9.8 and 7.5, and 9.8 assists, that is. But he's only 29% from 3-pro. Now, he does shoot a lot of high, degree of difficulty, James Harden-esque step-back type threes, but 29%, he's got to improve that for them to. He can't shoot that in the Game 7, but he's been huge for him. Brunson bounced back. He had a shocking first couple of games in this series, but he's really bounced back. Like you said, he was punched in the face, and they threw big defenders on him, and it definitely wasn't the Utah Jazz defensively. He had to adjust to that, and credit to him, he has. He's back at 17.8 a night. Did Dallas have enough outside of Luka, Pro? That's the question I have. Dinwiddie's been horrible. He's 8 points a night at 35% for this series. He's probably the guy I look at. I say you need to have a 15 and 5 night for us. I think Kleber's the other X factor for Dallas when he shoots a ball well. He's had a hell of a playoff to date. They're good, but Dinwiddie's the one I look at. They brought him in for, Porzingis, and he was in that trade. I think they expected more out of him. But what do you got? Are you going to go against the Game 7 percentages, or are you staying with Phoenix?
No, I had Dallas actually in the series.
You had them 4-2 though, right? You had them 4-2.
Yeah, I think they're going to win the final. I think they're going to get to the finals and could win it. I think I'm looking at Phoenix, Bogues, and they're all fucked up. Like, look, I'm a big fan of Phoenix. Don't get me wrong, but it just seems like Dallas is coming at them. It's sort of like Boston and Milwaukee that we'll talk about next, obviously, where like Milwaukee will win these games or have leads, and you're like, fuck this. This ain't happening. And like they just ram it down their fucking throat. And Dallas just keeps doing that. And they just keep coming and fucking attacking, Phoenix. And Phoenix, look, they'll have some runs where Booker goes off and, I don't understand why you just don't roll Ayton and just fucking keep giving him.
He's been really good.
Yeah, giving him on the rolls and fucking lobbing it. Like they don't have anybody that can stop him, but they keep going away from it. And I'll tell you what, Bridges has got to step up more. Like, yeah, Chris Paul is having a shitty series for no problem. Like Jay Crowder's stepping up a little bit more out of his role, which is great. He's almost shooting 50 from 3. But like Bridges, come on, man. Like you got to give more offense than that.
Cam Johnson too.
10 and 5. Yeah, those guys got to give more. But Dallas just keeps coming at you. They guard you. They fucking, they're attacking the rim. Luka, like, I don't give a like. I don't care about these now. You're trying to like, say Luka plays like this guy, like that guy. I don't know any of that. Like whatever, he plays like Luka, but he's got a Larry Bird type like winning. He'll do anything that it needs to do to fucking win. Like finish, pass, fucking shoot, get to the basket, whatever the fuck. That guy just.
He got better defensively.
Everything.
When they were going at him, Remember, defensively, we spoke about it last week.
Yeah.
He hasn't got to an elite level, but I think he took that personally. It's been noted.
Yeah.
Probably watched some film. He's been more solid defensively for him. He definitely has.
Yeah.
It's been noticeable that he's like, you know what? I know I'm averaging 30, 35 points a night and I'm carrying us offensively, but for us to win, I need to be average to a little bit above average defensively, especially guarding Booker or CP at times. And credit to him, he has.
Yeah, and Bird's like Larry Bird was one of the worst defenders in NBA history, but the fucking guy was so smart. He just knew where to be. And I think that's sort of what Luka has. Like, he just knows, like, he's one of the smartest players I've ever seen. And he just knows where to be. Now, look, he's got so much effort on the offensive end that obviously he can't do it on both ends. It's, possession after possession. But they were attacking him. I don't give a fuck if they attack him all night. Like, offensively, they just got it rolling. Like, yeah, like Dinwiddie's not stepping up and Brunson's only shooting like 19% from 3. But, like, they just keep attacking him. And Phoenix really isn't stepping up offensively. Like Booker gives you a little bit. Obviously, he gives you a lot. And then Ayton gives you, but, like, Chris Paul's been a very average. He's not getting to his spots. And then, like, Johnson's been shitty. Bridges has been shitty. Like, I just don't think they have enough, Bogues. I don't think they have enough. They keep fouling. I just see Dallas winning this on the road. And again, yes, you're right. 80+% of the home team game 7s, no doubt about it. But something about fucking Dallas is just like, they just keep coming at them and there's nothing they can do about it. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win pretty handily. I think it'll be an 11-point win or more. And it just like the Luka deal. And that's what it is. He'll find a way to do it.
Is Scott Foster refereeing this game?
I don't give a fuck I don't care if Jeff Foster.
No. It's a bit. Yeah, no,
is it
the Chris Paul thing? Maybe you know something I know.
Yeah.
I got to find out if Scott.
No, I have no idea.
If old Scotty boy is refereeing this one because we can make Chris Paul go 0 for 15 with Scott Foster.
Without question. Is he, Bogues? Have you found out?
I don't know. I haven't checked the rosters, but he was out sick. He was out sick a couple of games ago, so maybe he's due for a rotation in one of these game 7s. They usually give him the game 6, so it can go 7.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And plus, I would have thought that Twitter would have exploded if he was.
I hope he's.
You know what I'm saying?
I hope something happens. It'd be fun to see. But yeah, I mean, I'm not completely sold on Phoenix. I agree with you. Your take. I don't think they've played that well. A lot of their role playing, scoring guys have disappeared. But percentages say that the home team holds on. So I'm sticking with 4-3, but I can see why you would make a flip flop because I'm not. Yeah, I mean, I think Phoenix, even if they do get through, I think Golden State's getting in the next round anyway. So. Whereas I picked them at the start of the playoffs, so I've kind of we like to jump ship when it's applicable, but we'll see how that thing all goes. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. Love to see Game 7s. All right, Boston Milwaukee. Man, I jumped ship last week because I just doubted Giannis and I just couldn't continue to doubt him. I jumped ship and said Milwaukee 4-3 into 7, so I predicted that they'd win Game 7 on the road. Game 6. Was a hell of a game. It was a great game of basketball to watch. It was just back and forth, and Milwaukee they were throwing jabs. They were Giannis. I mean, 46 points, some huge late. He hit it. Sorry, that was Tatum with 46 points. Giannis had 44, 20, and 6. Giannis made some big buckets. Hit a key 3 late. But it seemed like every run they made, Tatum, take a bow. Hasn't shot the ball that well from 3 in the playoffs, but geez, he hit some huge threes. Every time they got it to 11 down to 8 or down to 5, bang, bang threes, and just kept jabbing back at him. And that was huge. Tatum, played very, very well. He had 46 points in that game. So I think he got him over the line single-handedly in that fourth quarter. He's 28 points, 6 and 5 for the series, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. Giannis, like I said, he's single-handedly carrying him. It shows how much they miss Middleton. They need that third scorer. Drew Holiday's 21 a night on 35%. He's the key. He's got to lift that. If he can get a 45 to 50% night with the 30 ball, they've got a chance in Game 7. He needs a good clip. I think he's the X factor. They've just said Middleton is out, I believe, for Game 7. They haven't formally announced it, but there's a rumor mill. They said he might be back in Game 6, but I think that's just games from the Milwaukee Bucks fucking with Boston, so they have to, put him back in the scout and think about someone that's not playing. But he seems to be out. They just don't have a consistent third option, Milwaukee, right now. Grayson Allen is getting to a point of being unplayable in this series. He's been awful for him. He's plus minus for the series. He's bad. He's not hitting the 3 ball, and they're picking on him defense. They're picking on him. They're trying to find him on the offensive end and get him involved in a lot of plays. Al Horford, resurgence pro. Let's not forget he was signed that big deal in Philly, ended up in OKC as just a salary that they were using, and they told him to go home. And we don't want, not that he was a bad teammate, they just said you can just stay home. You don't have to travel with us. You're not going to play with us. Come back to Boston, which was a great move by Boston. It was criticised. They were like, why are we bringing this guy back? He's old, he's washed up, he's making a shitload of money. Huge for him this series. Even last game, didn't have big numbers offensively, but had 5 or 6 block shots. Knows how to play. Great veteran, especially with Williams out. So, man, I can't pick this one. I'm going to stick with what I jump ship on. So I'll stick with Milwaukee and go against the odds like you did in the previous series. But I think this is such a coin flip. It could go either way. But I'm going to stick with Milwaukee's because what I said. But my head's saying Boston's found the formula to win the series. But this one's been a great series. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. What do you got?
I got Boston, and it's not even anything to do with the numbers. It's just that. Again, it's like that whole Dallas series, and it's worse. It's worse than the Dallas series. I just think that without Middleton, they don't have that. They don't have enough shooting. They don't have enough scoring. They don't, like Giannis is literally like, he's like Bugs Bunny in that fucking baseball cartoon where he's playing every fucking position. Like he's doing everything, and he's doing everything that he can. And it's just Boston just looks at it and just like, shakes it off and just does whatever. Like, yeah, Tatum and Brown's been great. Don't get me wrong. But the guys who are winning this series for him are Horford and Smart. Like toughness, smart. I'm getting fucking destroyed in my group chat, Bogues. I got a bunch of Celtics fans. And I at the beginning of the year, because I don't give a fuck who wins. I'm not a fan of any team. I just want to watch the game. And like, I'm like, Al Horford's fucking washed up. He's like 90, blah, blah, blah. He'll be done he's like David Justice was for fucking the Oakland A's, just washed up. And like, they were taking it. And now they've been destroying me daily, probably by the hour, fucking killing me over this shit. And he's right. Like Horford's been fucking amazing. 14 and 10, like defensively, making threes, offensively. Smart makes threes when you need to. Obviously he's playing on the defensive end. Milwaukee just doesn't have enough. Like, Holiday's scoring the quietest 21 that I've ever seen in my life. I would never have thought, like, looking at stats now, that he's averaging 21. They just don't have, like, they don't have that other person like Portis, Connaughton, like Brooke Lopez. One, like, all three of those guys got to score 15, for them to even have a fucking chance. And they just don't have enough. They're without Middleton, their bench has been all year. They've been just average on their bench, and they've been inconsistent. I don't think they have enough. I think that Boston just looks at them and, like, you watch it over history where, like, when the Bulls beat the Lakers with Magic, their last finals appearance, and they put up a futile game one win, and then, like, Chicago just laughed at them and fucking railroaded them. I saw the same thing with a younger Detroit team when they beat Kareem and the Lakers. Like, these guys are good, they're champions, but they just don't have enough. Without Middleton, they just don't have enough. They got to play in Boston in that fucking environment. Yeah, I don't think they have a fucking chance. I think they're going to get blown out of the gym. I would say
blown out. Win. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they got a fucking chance, which means they're going to win by 50 if I'm saying that. But I think that the Celtics are going to win by 20. I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, maybe. But I think some of the pressure falls on Boston, though.
True.
Milwaukee do have that championship merit. I agree they don't have that third string scorer, which greatly affects them. I think if Middleton's in this series, I'm more comfortable with with Milwaukee getting through. But the pressure does fall now. Tatum's going to then back up what he did last game, and Boston have been a little up and down in this series, as have Milwaukee. So I think I don't think Milwaukee folds to a blowout. I think Boston's going to have to win this. I think it's going to be under 10. But We'll see what happens. This pod's going to drop right when that game's going on, or just after. So hindsight will be a beautiful thing. But I think it's been a great series. I've enjoyed it. I think this is what basketball's all about. It hasn't been too much flopping and shenanigans and all that. It's been mono on mono. I mean, there has been some charge taking on Giannis, and in fairness, he does overrun guys a lot and is susceptible to charges. So I know people are complaining about that, but hey, he's a beast down there, so people have been going after that. But looking forward to watching the replay of this one, Pro, when I wake up in the morning, and we'll see how we go. News, no one in the NBA believes Harden will receive the full extension from the 76ers from Brian Windhorst. What are your thoughts?
Ooh, that is interesting.
So I think he can do a shorter deal, right? I think he can do a shorter deal if he wants to, a la LeBron or whatever. But the full one, which is a shitload of money I don't have in front of me, but it's a couple $100 million, isn't it? And he'll be, closer to his 40s by the end of that deal. I don't do it if I'm the GM. I don't do it. No way in hell. But like you said, there is that relationship between himself and Morey. So do you think they'll do it?
No, but I think they're he'll load him up for less years, in my opinion, and just give him flexibility or what have you. I think, in my opinion, there's not enough teams that have cap room enough to do a deal for him, that the money that he wants. And I don't think there's that need for him anymore. Again, like guys like, I put him in like Allen Iverson sort of his category. When AI was killing it, there wasn't a dollar amount that was enough for him. Once he lost a half a step, that's when everybody started running for the fucking hills. And I don't think that there's that big demand, like he's a top 5, top 10, top player like that anymore after this year. And I don't think that there's going to be, again, a team with cap room and the need for him or want for him like that. He's got Daryl Morey that could probably give him $50 million a year for like 2 years or whatever, or option it, whatever, player option it. But I don't think he gets the full. And I just don't think there's the demand, the age, the miles, how he looks. I just don't see that. But Daryl Morey loves him. So if there's a team that do it, it's them. I don't think they do it. I just think they give him a shorter deal with big money because, they got I believe they have his bird rights, so they can give him whatever they want. That's what I say. I say they front load it. They give him shorter years, but they give him a lot of money. Daryl Morey loves this guy. The love affair, it's just too much. It's not too much, but it's just very high. And I think that he's going to do anything he can to sign him. I think the media and social media and stuff are killing them right now. I don't think the ownership will allow that to happen with the full-fledged max deal, full years. But I think they'll give him a lot of money up front for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I wouldn't do the long-term one, but if they can do a tweak on it, it's plausible because, like you said, they're stuck with what they got. They can't really do a whole lot more with that roster. So, Phil Jackson reportedly would like LeBron traded. My take, that was from Bill Plaschke. I say no chance with Jeannie at the helm. She loves her superstars, loves her names. That's just not going to happen, I don't think, in my opinion. But what do you think?
Well, what are you going to get for LeBron right now? That's the thing. Not that you won't get anything. You'll get something. You'll get a lot, but not a lot. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it goes down to if you're a small market, that's probably not going, and you're not going championship in the next 4 or 5 years. Not that he'd go to Detroit or someone like that, but do you just bring him in for ticket sales and arena sales? And
of course they would. But like, if you're the Lakers, what are they giving you? So like, what is his value with his age, and what another team, like, how much are you going to give? So like, if you're Oklahoma City, which would never do it, but if say it's Oklahoma City, are you going to give him Josh Giddey for him? Are you going to give him, because that's what it would cost you. Maybe you can get away with the other kid, Alexander, maybe. But like, you just keep going down with all these teams. You're going to give him Bradley Beal if you're Washington, because that's what it cost you. So like, New York doesn't have anybody even close to that. So you'd have to take literally their whole roster for him. But it's not enough. I just don't think there's enough. I don't think they would ever do it because of the name. And that's the only thing basically attracting, ticket sales these days. Yeah, Anthony Davis, don't get me wrong. But the Laker name and LeBron James is the only thing that's doing it. And look, they're going to be another play-in team, maybe a little bit better than that. And they're not going anywhere, but that's their ticket. That's their ticket. It's sort of like when Kobe at the end of his career, look, he couldn't win games for you like that. The team just wasn't good enough, but they still gave him $24 million a year anyway. And they wouldn't trade him because A, what would you get back? And B, he's Kobe Bryant. Now, he's not even close to what Kobe was in Laker history, obviously, but he's still the name and he still puts up numbers and he still goes at it every night. I just say they fucking play this out and they figure out what they're going to do after next year. Are they going to draft this kid? Are they not going to draft this kid? Are they just going to let him go? But yeah, you don't trade him. Phil's had a thing for LeBron, past decade or so. Remember he had that posse line with him a few years back and all that stuff. Like, Phil just likes to bust balls anyway because he's irrelevant now, and he just likes to throw fucking lines here and there. But what are you gonna do? Yeah,
it's just an interesting one that got broken. I don't think it happens. I think Junior lets it happen, but I don't think a team sells the farm for him. And you got to bring his son in too. Don't forget. So that could change things as well, as we've reported before that he wants to play with his son and something along the lines of whoever brings me in, it's a package deal with my son. So. You better hope his son can play basketball at an NBA level. But anyway, we'll watch that space. Zach Kleiman, Executive of the Year. I think we both picked this one. NBA got that one very right. Well-constructed roster. My question for you is, can they chip in the next 5 years? Within the next 5 years, Pro? Can the Memphis Grizzlies, can they get to a finals in the next 5 years?
I think that was a fact or fake news question a few weeks back. But yeah. I think they're young enough. They've got enough guys under contract. They've got an owner that will pay. And I think that they can if they wait it out. Look, you don't know what Golden State's going to do in the next couple of years, where they're going to go. Are they going to decline? Is somebody, God forbid, going to get hurt? Phoenix, with Chris Paul declining, you don't know where they're going to be. Then you got Dallas. You don't know if they're going to acquire a player or they're not. So they're right there. They're top 3, top 2, top 3, top 4 team going forward in the West. I think that they definitely can make an NBA final if they wait it out. If Ja could stay healthy, they could keep, they could sign Bane long-term. They could sign these other guys long-term. Jaren Jackson Jr. gets better. I think they could definitely make a final. Can they win a final? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, again, these guys are getting old. You don't know what's going to happen with Giannis and, Milwaukee, because again, they're going to have to retool that roster. You don't know what's going to happen there. Boston, they got their top two guys signed long term, and they're gonna stay going forward. They're young enough. So I think they make a final. Are they a championship team? I don't know. I can't say yes or no.
Don't forget, in the West, they got to get through Phoenix. They got to get through Dallas. They got to get through Golden State to even get to that level, right? So,
no doubt.
I would say
yes. Within 5 years, though.
Within 5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a coin flip. I think they're young and talented. I think Dallas is going to be there for a long, long time now. They're going to be in the top four of the West for a while, so you have to get through them. My question will be Phoenix without CP3 down the line, just if they can continue this form. Who knows? I mean, people overvalue CP3's leadership in that locker room. I don't know. Golden State is still going to have another 3 or 4 successful years, I believe. We'll start to see a bit of a drop-off in Steph and Clay, but they're still early 30s for the most part. Draymond is a little bit older. So I don't know. I mean, it's a tough one. It's a good one to ponder and debate. I wonder what the fans think, whether the Grizzlies will be, in that position, or do they still need to tweak the roster a little bit, maybe just get more games under their belt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, stay healthy.
Yeah, stay healthy. That's a big one. Ja Morant, the D Rose comparisons are fair. All right, Mike D'Antoni rumored as the front runner for the Charlotte Hornets. They do have a D'Antoni type roster, I think. They do. The run and gun, loosey goosey type roster, obviously led by their point guard in LaMelo. I think he'll get him some wins. I'm just not sold on the D'Antoni all in style. It's never equated to a championship, bro. And I think it's a beautiful style to watch. Like if you're going to game 50, game 32, whatever in the regular season, great. It's a great style of basketball to watch. It wins a lot in the regular season. It just does not win as much in the playoffs, bro. So do you like this move? Do you think it's good? Do you think it's bad? Do you think they have a chance to, better themselves with this style of play?
I think that D'Antoni's style with ball is good because I think the last coach had issues with ball, and you could see it on the bench. See, I think D'Antoni's the type that just doesn't give a fuck. He's going to coach his style. The first and the 15th is going to be fucking glorious, and he doesn't really get too amped up about guys. Look, he's had Harden, no problem. He's had Westbrook, no problem. Like, these guys are no problem to him just because he just wants to coach his style. What I do think, and I don't have any intel for this, I do think that he's just waiting out Philly, in my opinion. I think that they're going to want him to be their coach. I think Doc Rivers, like I've said, probably before the regular season ended, that he's going to be the next coach in the Lakers. I think the Lakers are going to have to figure out, do they want an actual coach like Doc to want to coach LeBron and those guys, or are they going to bring in Mark Jackson, who will just basically just want a job? So I think that D'Antoni would be good for Charlotte because, look, they need a style, a system. I think that would fit. And I think they need a coach that's going to have to deal with ball. And I've heard he's very high maintenance. So if D'Antoni doesn't give a fuck, that's fine. Now, D'Antoni, not a lot of people want to hire D'Antoni because of age and things like that. So if he's in a finalist for this and he doesn't get anything, if he doesn't get anything with the Philly deal, that this might be his last job that he gets in the next few years. So yeah, like that's weird to me. I think it's a good hire for Charlotte, because again, it's a good coach that knows what he's doing. That style will be good. They won't guard anybody. They don't guard anybody anyway, so it's fine. But I think he's seriously waiting out the whole Philly situation to see if Doc's going to go and what's going to happen there.
Yeah, the Doc thing as well. We've got to mention that. I mean, his comments. A lot of people have criticised him for hanging on to that. Was it 08 Boston championship, and that's got him jobs down the line. And he has had some talented rosters, man. Philly, Clippers. And just can't get it done. They choke in the big moment. There's, Philly have gone on record saying he's coming back next year. We know there's rumours linked to LA. So that will be interesting to see how that all works out. I mean, it didn't look good. I mean, if Doc's begging his guys to play hard in a game 5 and a game 6 of the playoffs, I think something was amiss earlier. So, yeah, I think D'Antoni for Charlotte is good now. Like I said, I don't think it's the long-term solution to try and get to a championship, but let's be honest, Charlotte's goals in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years aren't a championship. They need to reestablish themselves in the East, become a top 8 team consistently, and I think D'Antoni is the right piece to do that. And then I think maybe he gets them to a semi-finals or maybe perhaps a conference finals, and then I think beyond that you probably make the move if you have to, because I don't think his system's a championship system. I think because he's so all in on offense, right? He really doesn't really care what you do defensively. But I like the move right now to give him some legitimacy. They'll be an enjoyable style to watch down there in Charlotte. So I like that one. Kyrie. Does he go back to Brooklyn? I mean, some pretty pointed comments from Amari was one. And Amari, funnily enough, said exactly what I said leading into the playoffs and what I said all season as to why I didn't pick them in the playoffs, even in the first round, was because they had no consistency playing together. And Amari came out and said that on record and kind of threw a bit of shade at Kyrie along the way, but it was the truth. I mean, he couldn't play in New York. He couldn't play in Brooklyn or at the Knicks. In and out of the lineup, only playing road games. Then you factor that in with the trade they made, and then KD was injured, and lineup change. It cost him. So I agree with Amari there. It was interesting that he led with those pointed comments. Sean Marks's comments were more kind of alarming. It basically came out and said, we're looking for guys that want to come in here and be a part of something bigger than themselves. Play selfless, play team basketball, and be available. And that goes not only for Kyrie, but everyone else. I mean, that's pretty pointed towards one guy. No matter how you spin it, especially the first part, something bigger than themselves, play selfless, and be available. So I think some frustrations there. You think Kyrie will be back with Brooklyn?
Again,
what else do they do?
They sold the farm to get this guy. They sold the farm to get him. They sold the farm to get Harden. It's just a weird deal to me. They got rid of Harden quickly, and now they got this guy. Look, you don't make a move like this to get a guy in unless you did your homework. You've got scouts you're supposedly paying to supposedly do their job, and intel guys. You knew what you were getting for this guy. You knew you were getting this guy that was unbelievably talented, but unbelievably hard to deal with. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do now? You're just going to give him away? Because that's what's going to happen. You're going to give him this guy away, and you're going to be like, yeah, it's so much better for our locker room. But you've got all these assets that were into this guy. You can't really just replace him. The devil that is, sometimes better than just getting it from somewhere else. At least you know what you're going with this guy. Look, the whole mask mandate, not the mask mandate, the whole vax thing. Look, people were celebrating him. A lot of the league was celebrating the guy that, he didn't get it. He didn't, he stuck to his guns or whatever. Yeah, whatever he does with that, he does with that. That's on him. But now you complain about it. So you love the fact that, people first love that he's got this, he doesn't care what people think of him. Now everybody's killing him for it. It's a little weird to me. But it is inconsistent. Yeah, but it's not the vax thing that bothers me. It's sort of what he says and how he says it and sort of the high maintenance of it. Look, NBA superstars, 95% of them are going to be high maintenance as fuck. But some of the stuff that he says, and we'll go over the Nike thing in a minute, he just trashes anybody. He's so up and down with his stuff and so moody and so sensitive to stuff. It's interesting, but I don't know, man. They can't just replace his 20 plus points and 9 plus assists. Where are you going to just replace that from? And again, you sold your whole farm, Jared Allen, LeVert, picks, all these guys to bring in Harden, to bring in this. You got fucking $30 million a year in salary just sitting there with a bad back. What are you doing? Now you just got basically, if you do get rid of this guy, you're literally just going to have Durant and a couple other role players with you. What are you doing now? So it'll be interesting. I would have never brought the guy in the first place, but if you brought him in, you had to know that this was going to be a fucking.
That's a trade-off, right? But that's the elite superstar, all-star trade-off. You said, they got scouts. They should have known what he was like. Everyone knew, he's got issues, like most superstars, not most, but a lot of superstars. And I think that's a trade-off. You deal with bullshit if your player's elite, and he's an elite basketball player when he's on the floor. So It'd be interesting to see which direction they go with all that. Just those comments were pretty pointed by Sean Marks. But like you said, what else do you do? You move him, and then you've only got KD, and you're building around KD and Ben. That's not enough. Not in the East anyway. Definitely not enough. I mean, you see what Boston did to him. And Boston were playing great basketball, but people thought I thought it'd at least go 6 or 7 games. Like the way they just whitewashed them was off the floor was. It was disappointing. I thought they should have more fight than that, and we'll see. And reportedly losing his Nike deal as well, which is interesting in itself. He's one of their highest selling shoes, I believe. So someone will come in and swoop him up, especially with these Chinese companies throwing money. But losing your Nike deals.
Bogues, he did say the shoes were trash.
I know. But
you know what I'm saying? But
they sell. Let's not kid ourselves. Nike don't really give a shit about too much of the moral high ground on whatever. They look at profits. I mean, you know what I mean? We all know how and where their shoes are made when they're fighting for different social justice causes. But usually they put that aside. But they must be really off the train of Kyrie if they're willing to say, you know what, you sell us a lot. We sell a lot of shoes with your through Kyrie Irving's branding with the Nike logo, but we don't want to deal with it anymore. That's telling within itself, right? So.
You just can't say it's fucking trash. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
You can say it's trash, just not fucking trash.
Yeah, right. It's fucking weird though, man. I mean, they're paying you millions of fucking dollars, and you're just gonna say the product's trash or whatever. Even if you think that, come on, man. What do you expect?
Be smart about it. Yeah.
Give you a raise, give you an extension from it. Yeah,
he would have had some crisis meetings. He would have had some crisis meetings about it. I want to finish with this. NBA Reviews Pro, too many?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I guess it's a boy who cried wolf, but be careful what you wish for. I think, funnily enough, the NBL's got it right. You get your coach's challenge, you keep it if you're right, you lose it if you're wrong, which I think is great. I think the NBA should implement that. But I think there was so much outrage back in the day about missed calls here and there, especially late in games in the NBA, and refs are cheating. The NBA said, okay, we're gonna review everything in the last 2 minutes. We're going to review every borderline flagrant. I think it's too much now. I think it is be careful what you wish for, and it's just overdone. It just kills when you're watching the game, and especially the flagrant ones, man. It's just like come on, and then they're spending 2 or 3 minutes and going back and forth. It kills the flow of the game. It kills the beautiful viewing generally of watching live professional sport, and I'm not a fan of it. I think reviews are needed at times. I like the coach's challenge. I think for key out of bounds plays and all that kind of stuff. But reviewing every flagrant, reviewing this, reviewing that. I mean, I'm cool, especially the flagrants. I'm cool with the post game review if they. Go to it after a game and they're like, look, we saw something on the film after the game and it was dirty and we're going to fine you on top of that. No problem. But the stop-start in the middle of games is killing me, bro.
Yeah, it's fucking pathetic, to be honest with you. It's pretty rough. I mean, not pathetic, but it takes a lot of the oxygen out of the room with it, And I like you said, the coaching challenge stuff. And if he's right, they should keep the challenge and lose it if you don't, if it's not right. But dude, they challenge every play. It's weird. As a player, I haven't really asked enough players, how are they affected by that with the momentum? Does it shift that you're on and off and on and off and on and off like that?
Imagine D'Antoni would hate it, wouldn't he? His system, he's all about running you off your legs and getting you tired and shooting the first available shot. It's we're going to start every 3 minutes. It kills his offense a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, I think they just need to tweak it a little bit. Like all things, we see it in everyday life and in politics. It goes from one extreme, we're going to fix that, and then it goes way past the balance. It goes to the other extreme. And then it takes a year or two to reel it back to where it should be. And I assume the NBA is going to be looking at it because some of these games are going for 3 hours and you're like, no, this is not a good TV product. And they love the in-arena fans, but what butters their bread is TV viewership, and if people are turning off for whatever reason, they don't like that. So I think they'll probably look at it, the Board of Governors meeting and the Rules Committee, and maybe just a little tweak. And then there's also that mindset of what's the difference between an out-of-bounds call in the last 2 minutes and the first 2 minutes? They do affect the score the same way, essentially, if you're looking at it that way, right? So maybe we go back to referees are going to make mistakes, and they're human, and we move on if they make a mistake. But I think society is to blame for these reviews to an extent because we wanted it, right?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
All right, moving on to the NBL. I'm going to lead in with this, pro.
Weeks with one last three. The 17-year drought is over. All hail the Kings. Sydney, the NBL 22 champions. 3-0 sweep of the Jack Jumpers. They win it 97-88.
It's your NBL champions, pro. So, 17 years, a long time between drinks. Got there a couple of years ago, fell short of the Perth Wildcats. Kiss a ring, baby. But yeah, 3-0, the Jack Jumpers were tough. They were really, really tough. Adams there in Tasmania made some huge shots, especially in Game 3, just to keep them in the game. He was making some ridiculous stuff, like it was an elite, high-quality game. Game 1, we win pretty easily, as you know. Our MVP and league MVP goes down, Jalen Adams, for us. He was out the rest of the series, so we had every excuse to have this go, maybe 4 or 5 games, or even potentially be, a bit sketchy, but we had so many different guys step up throughout the series, and Xavier Cooks was the finals MVP. He was 19, 11.7 rebounds and 5.3 assists a night in a 40-minute game, pro. So he was huge for us. I mean, he's a fringe NBA guy. I think he'll get some looks at Summer League again, and he should be on a roster as a role-playing 4-5, I believe. But for the Sydney Kings point of view, we hope he's back, but we also hope he has more success. If it is the NBA, we support it, but we hope to have him back. Jarrell Martin was fantastic for us. He had 22 and 17 at a real effective clip, 9 for 12 from the field. So he was massive. Sean Bruce, he's a quiet achiever, but with our point guard, Judy's past first point guard, he had high assist games in numerous finals and playoff games for us. He's not often celebrated, so I thought I'd mention him. Really looked after the ball well. Ian Clark, pro, he had a stinker of a first half in Game 3. I don't think he made a shot till about 5 seconds left in the first half. He hit a buzzer beater. Turned the ball over, didn't play well. And so I go back to the hallway with about 20 seconds left before the halftime siren. I try to get to the locker room and just see how guys are going, the body language. And he was walking head down, fists balled up, wasn't too happy. And I kind of knew he's locked in. He's locked in for the second half, and then he finishes the game with 22 points, hit every kind of Tatum-esque in context of every time Tassie made a run, he'd come down and hit a big 3 or a big shot for us, and got that done. We even got a parade, pro. The government threw the Sydney Kings a parade yesterday.
How'd that go?
Yeah, it was good. Not nothing like the NBA. I mean, I think it was 500 to 1,000 people there, but parades just don't do well in Australia, even for a bigger and better sports. Essentially, our number 1 rating sports, the AFL, parades just aren't supported. But for the government to throw that and support it, and then shout out to our players. They sat there for 2 hours and signed autographs, which was sensational. So I know there's a lot of angry people out there, pro, that are really angry the Sydney Kings got over the line, but we finally got it done. So it was good, and to be able to be there and celebrate with a bunch of guys that have been through all kinds of different things. It was a great series, pro. So sorry to your Jack Jumpers.
Yeah, and if anybody knows and looks up the wrestler Greg the Hammer Valentine, and if you want to Google him, he's an exact replica of Scott Roth. So, he was a wrestler from the 80s. He looks just like fucking Roth. And my guys, even though I don't know one guy on this fucking team, they fought really hard. They were my 1B in the NBL. I wanted to see you guys win. Now, if you weren't in the ownership, I would have been all Jack Jumper all day. But you know what? They'll be back. Unless Roth's not going to be back, then I'm off the Jack Jumper.
I don't know. There are some quiet whispers. So he's had a tough couple of years, been stuck with COVID, hasn't seen his family. So I think the whole league hopes he's back. I hope he's back as a rival team. But there are some rumblings that he could be gone. So we hope that's not true, but we'll see what happens. But we'll look at what Greg the Hammer Valentine. We'll look it up and maybe we'll post.
Yeah, you got to look it up.
Post something on our socials. No rest for the wicked, pro. The league's moved free agency forward. They're trying to get back on schedule for next season because COVID threw everything out. So the league's gone a bit longer. Free agency starts next week. So that no rest for our GM, Chris Pongrass, and all the people around the league. So to that, and a small little Twitter poll I did, I put out, should team salaries in the NBL be made public? And there was 1,600 votes and 77%. Yes, pretty emphatic. So the reason why I bring this up is there's a lot of people out there that said, the Sydney Kings bought a championship. We didn't. We're not paying a cent of luxury tax to the league, which means we are under the cap. We are just under the cap. Testament to Chris Pongrass putting that roster together. We had some injuries we had to deal with. Obviously, we brought in Ian Clark. A lot of people were like, how did you afford him? Well, he hadn't played for professional basketball for roughly a year. So there was some risk there from our point of view. We didn't know whether he'd be in great shape. We didn't know whether he'd come in and need to be babied into playing big minutes. Thankfully, he was the utmost professional and we didn't need to do that. But for those out there, I agree with salaries being made public. I wish we could. I think it's a good thing, Pro. I don't know what your thoughts are on it. I don't think, we go to the extreme of the US where we have individual player salaries, which I don't mind, but a lot of people push back on that, and the union definitely pushes back on it. But as far as team salaries, I think it's a great story. Let's say Team A is over the cap horrifically, like, they're over the cap by $500,000, and now they're playing against a team that's, maybe a Jack Jumpers or a Hawks that's way under. They can't afford to spend that. It's David versus Goliath storyline. So I think it's a good thing. I'm not sure where you stand on it, Pro.
Look, the old overseas thing's pretty strange with the salary stuff. It's never out in the open, like any country. You hear stories from agents or whatever, what guys make, and nobody really wants to do it. But of course, when you win it, they're going to say things like, you bought the championship, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I think it all should be public. But then again, sometimes these characters who run these overseas teams, they don't want anything they do public. So, for one reason or another. So I don't know. I think it should be. But, I guess every country is different in how they do things. So, yeah. I would say open it up, but there's no real reason not to have it open up. Would you like it?
I would. I just think the NBL. This is my point as to why I think the NBL dies a PR death for 4 or 5 months a year in the off season. Like, it's just not spoken about really. Besides the diehard fans, the media is not really writing about the NBL in the off season. It's hard to get any traction in the newspaper because there's no games on. I think this is where the NBA does such a great job. They have a PR cycle every month of the year. We've spoken about this. Like, we spoke about it last off season where, the podcast went to every 2 weeks in the off season, and we're like, holy shit, there's almost more news in the off season than there is in, right? I think that's where it helps the NBL. If you can, have that debate, have people say, that player's not worth this much, or he's worth more. How do they pay him this? How could they afford it? I think they're great debates, pro or con, whether you're against them or for them. I think those discussions are needed, and that will continue conversation of the NBL basketball in the off season. Whereas right now, it's just not really spoken about. So that's why I would like it. I know the union, for whatever reason, doesn't like salaries being released, and the players aren't huge fans of it. But as a guy that played in both leagues, it is what it is. I mean, people know what you're making roughly, and I think it's a good thing. And I think it creates transparency. If teams are potentially doing something a bit shady, where you're like, hang on a second, are you really paying him more than that? If a team comes in and offers more than what you've reported you're paying him, and it gets turned down, then you're like, hang on a second. Like, you said you're paying him $300, we offered him $400, he turned it down in the blink of an eye. We don't believe you're just paying him $300. There must be something else going on. I think it creates a lot more honesty around the league, and I think that's a good thing. So there's a number of reasons why. I get why some of the players don't like it. They don't want to be in the spotlight like that. They don't want people knowing. But I think for the league to grow forward, I think the more news and stuff we can get that people can talk about and get fired up about, the better.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I'm on board with that.
Yeah. So we shall see. I'll bring it up at the owners' meeting with good old Larry. Liz Cambridge, again, has been in the news now. The reason I wasn't going to talk about this, but the reason why I did is because our friend Andrew Gaze has had a hell of a take on it. But her former teammate now of the Australian Opals, Jenna O'Hay, was on just a TV panel talk show on the ABC Pro. That's a government-funded news network.
I watched it. Yeah, I saw that.
You saw it. And she just basically got asked point blank. There's rumours that she told the Nigerians to go back to their third world country. Now, that was, in my opinion, the PG version, but can you confirm this? She said yes. Liz has somewhat came out and denied making these comments completely, basically said the truth will come to light, one of those cryptic Instagram posts or whatever it was along those lines. Well, I'll tell you this, if the video recording that the Nigerians have comes to light, I think the truth will come to light and much more. Because like I said, as you and I both know and have spoken about, that there was much more said than that. But Andrew Gaze, he does a radio show with a guy named Andy Marr, and the station's called SEN. This is about 10 minutes, pro, but let's have a listen to this, because I don't usually see Gazy off the fence too much. I don't see Gaze going too hard one way or another. For context, which you'll explain, he was a board member of Basketball Australia at the time when not for this previous indiscretion, but before that, and he's had dealings with Liz numerous times. So I'll play this and let it run out. Get comfy, pro, and have a listen.
Let's do it.
I want to talk about Liz Cambridge.
It's a pretty big issue.
Is this the right time and place? Because every now and again, you just put the brakes on.
Well, let's not bury the lead today for you, because this is exactly what you were wound up about. I think you've taken some of the commentary around this quite personally.
Yes, I have. I have. I'm not going to deny that.
I know that. I said I think you have taken some of this quite, and you rightfully so, given the fact that you were on the board of Basketball Australia, and some of Basketball Australia's management of this has been slightly brought into question.
Well, I think that.
So we have some audio here. Do you want to kick off any? Do you want to kick
do
off?
We need to explain what's happened first?
Does the Kelly Underwood, Liz Jenner O'Hay stuff help you explain it?
It does, but just for the audience out there, I just didn't know whether we wanted to provide a brief summary of Liz Cambridge.
You go your hardest, and then we'll play what happened on Sunday on Outsiders.
Most people remember prior to the Olympic Games, it was a week out before it started. She got involved in an altercation with Nigeria and in a practice game. In preparation, and the Opals and their leadership group decided we can't tolerate this behaviour. At the time, we didn't know exactly what the behaviour was. Subsequently, it did become, for those that were around and in the inner circle, that there was a pretty strong leakage about exactly what happened, but it was kept under wraps, and she didn't
swept under the carpet. And swept under the carpet, some people would say.
I wouldn't say that.
For Liz's benefit, I would say.
Correct.
If there was any covering up of this or attempt to not let it get out, am I right in saying it was to help Liz Cambage?
I think so. In the prospect that perhaps that sometime in the future that she may understand the mistakes that she had made, and that perhaps there could be some type of reconciliation, and that she would be available to play, because there's no doubting her basketball talent is elite and very, very unique. There's not too many 6'10" girls running around that can do what she does. Nothing about what she does on the court, but how she is as a teammate that was called into question. And then since then, so there was that underlying current about, well, what really happened? And Jenna O'Hay was on the Insiders program yesterday. The
Outsiders?
Isn't it the Insiders?
Insiders politics, Outsiders sport. That's how it works. I get it mixed up all the time.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Kelly Underwood did a magnificent job taking us through. Is now the right time for you, and then you can bounce off the back of this?
I think so.
This is how that conversation between Cal and Jenna O'Hay took place.
I'm living my best life. I'm supported. I'm protected on a level that the Opals or the Australian team never gave to me. My heart lies with those who want to protect me and those who want me to be the best I can be. And I never felt that in the Opals at all.
I can hold my head up high and say that I always loved her, always cared for her, always supported her, always had her back. I think that is her reality, and I think the listeners and watchers out there can believe who they want to believe. But yeah, I can hold my head up high.
And this all started in that training game, or the pre-Olympics game when you played Nigeria, and it's never really emerged what happened, but I've had it confirmed from a few sources. Is it correct that they were playing Nigeria and Liz Cambage had her feathers ruffled, and she turned to them and said, "Go back to your third world country"? And of course, Ezi Magbor is originally Nigerian, a Nigerian who's now living in Australia and playing for your team. And as a result, there was a brawl that erupted, and since then, you haven't spoken to her.
That is all 100% correct.
The brawl, was that between Ezi and Liz? Where did the brawl?
No, Ezi she's Nigerian. It was between Liz and the Nigerian opponent.
Okay, that's right.
And I think that was a brief summary of some of the things that took place. There are other versions that were far more offensive than just saying you're going from a third world.
Andrew Bogut's waiting on that on Sydney radio today.
Well, now whether that's true or not, I understand Jenna O'Hay. She's just repeating what was said, and she said, yes, that is correct. My understanding, there's even more to it that's even more disgusting than what was actually said.
And do you believe that?
There's no reason why I shouldn't. Because it's been said by a number of people who I think would know.
Yep.
But above and beyond that, and the thing that really, really grates at me is when she makes the comments to say she feels supported in Los Angeles and at a level that wasn't there with the Australian team, and the suggestion that she was never supported by Australia, the Opals, or Basketball Australia, that is highly offensive. I've been in a privileged position to be on the board of Basketball Australia during much of her time, and I had a long conversation with her directly, and unfortunately I couldn't have that conversation just one-on-one. Her agent had to be there.
Right.
And we went through some of the issues that were clearly apparent issues about where your priorities need to be, and there was a complete lack of understanding that, well, maybe I'm not wrong, but I can see another side of the argument.
Refuse
to see that her behaviour was not there. There has been other.
Can you illustrate any of that, or is it stuff that is
I don't
best?
think it's appropriate,
Okay,
but just to say that was a conversation that I was disappointed. I couldn't even have that conversation with her personally.
Yep.
It had to be.
Yep.
So right there is an element of trust that I was asked to do it. I was asked to do it as a figure in basketball, someone who's on the board that I had an understanding of of the issues that the board were facing in her, and we couldn't have that as a one. But it didn't worry me at the time. Okay, I don't care. I'm 100% transparent here. I'm trying to find a solution to the conflict that was arisen. In addition to that, there was some behaviour that Liz had that, under any reasonable judgment, that there would have been some significant repercussions that were there, that she was supported not just by me but by others along the way. So
let me just get an understanding of what you're saying there. Are you saying that Liz Camber did some things that you were dealing with,
and a lot of it's documented,
and you tried to help her through it?
100%. And to say that she wasn't supported is unfair. It is grossly unfair. And, I have great sympathy and compassion for, where she was at that point in time. And there may have been some confusion about where I need to be, her schedule, her timetable, all those things that are there. But at the bottom line, she made some decisions that didn't support her teammates. Yet, despite that, her teammates supported her during that time.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is, in her mind, she didn't think she was letting anyone down. And I'm talking about whether you show up.
Yeah.
You show up
to
prepare to represent your country. And so for all the things, and there might be times when she has certainly suffered some hardship. I don't know what they are, but they might be there. I'm not saying they're not.
Personal issues.
But to suggest other personal,
whatever,
team,
yep.
the normal things.
Yep.
But the suggestion on this particular incident and others that her teammates, her coaches, Basketball Australia, or anyone wasn't supporting her, that is offensive. That is offensive to people who are going out of their way to try and put in place a system where she can actually perform to her best. And it takes two. You don't get paid for representing your country, or very, very little. That's not your sole source of income. It's about honour.
Yep.
It's about privilege. It's about a sense of responsibility. It's about looking at your life and seeing how other people have provided you a privileged opportunity to perform to the highest level. And when you don't respect that, and in fact, you go the other way and say, these people have actually harmed me, that is disgusting behaviour by her. And it's offensive to me. It's offensive to anyone that's represented our country, that's her position.
There's not much more to say about that. That is powerful stuff from you. I think the fact that, I'll put this to you, the fact that Jenna O'Hay, who I think is an athlete of high integrity, the fact that she was prepared to publicly say what she did and put the team's position the way she did on national television on Sunday morning.
It's an insult to her.
Of course it is.
It's an absolute slap in her face.
Of course it is,
Who's
mate.
her friend?
Of course.
Defended her at the club level.
Of course.
Managed her, baby, looked after her.
So you think about the levels that you were brought in to try and deal with, right? You will know this better than me, but think about, I can only imagine what the long-term teammates, national-level teammates of Liz Cambage have been texting her, calling her, hey, buddy, hey, mate, we need you.
Not just in the last 12 months.
No, this would have been going on for years to try and get her to see.
Embrace her.
The common good.
Provide
of course.
Provide an area where you feel secure. And they do. They don't have the resources. Everyone thinks that it's not about that, Andy. This is a privilege.
It's so disappointing. Let's get a break out of the way. I applaud you for your authenticity and your emotional honesty. Good on you for saying what you've said. I feel like you've been sitting on this for a little while now. This tipped you over. I get it.
I've supported. Even when there's times I'm thinking, geez, I'm not sure about this, but listen, people sometimes they're different. You want to give them a cuddle, but when you just throw it in someone's face with those comments alone, that just tipped me over the edge. Where I've never been.
Is she lost to Australian basketball now?
Absolutely.
Yep.
How can you come back from that?
There's no coming back now.
How can you?
No.
Now maybe there's a holier than thou moment where she sees the light and understands that, hey, maybe I've made a few blues. And maybe in time you can go through it. But the way she speaks now, it's that we are privileged to have her, not that she is privileged to have an opportunity to wear our colours.
There you go, bro. That is, I know it was long, but the reason why I bring it up is Andrew Gaze rarely gets fired up like that. Like rarely. And his equivalent of his firing up is like us dropping 50 F-bombs, right? So he brings that up. You can hear the passion in his voice and the disappointment, because I know for a fact that they had numerous meetings with her and tried to support her as much as they could, not just in this last indiscretion, but for the last decade. When he gets fired up like that, you listen. There's a huge issue, right? I don't know what you thought about it, but it's disappointing that she's thrown her teammates under the bus, because I know for a fact that this is a danger with appeasing people. We bring it up a little bit with the Kyrie thing, how you said, you got to deal with the bullshit a little bit because it's a star. This is the dangers of appeasing people that make massive indiscretions and giving them, maybe we'll figure it out for you, or how can we further support you? We know you shouldn't have done that, but this is the danger of it, bro, because you normalize the behavior. And if you get away with it once, you get away with it twice, you get away with it 3 times, you play against a Nigerian team in a closed-door friendly and you say and do some things that, no one should do or no one thinks you should do. And then I assume she probably thought, it'll be a day or two and then I'll be fine again. And this is the case. I don't know what you thought about
it. You read so much about her. Besides Gaze's comments, like, you just read so much. It's like, when is there anything ever fucking positive that comes out of her mouth? It comes out of like to me, she's like DeMarcus Cousins, right? You can't win with her. She's not a winner. I think she's had 2 winning seasons in her whole WNBA career. Calls out teammates, calls out the league, calls out this, calls out that. Has this thing with Nigeria. That obviously is way worse than what people think it is. Then it's going to come out eventually. Someone's going to have something. And, to have something like Andrew Gaze, who's like mild-mannered as fuck, go that that radical as far as like out of character to sort of blast her. It just tells you she's delusional. She's a loser as a basketball player, not as a human being. I don't know anything about her, but you just like, when things get tough, she just fucking, it's just all about her. It's not about anybody else but herself. And, look, it's not like she's Shaq and she's winning these championships. Has she ever won anywhere? Like, I don't think she's ever even been in the finals. And you just always hear this controversy of what she has. And she always just like complaining about everything. Teammates, this, that, the league, calling that guy, like going racial on that guy that called the 300 pounds. Calling him a little white man or whatever like that. There's always something with her.
Well, she another comment that Gaze was referring to, you probably wouldn't know, there was an Australian Opals national team training camp, which she had shown up 4 days late for because she wanted to go to a music festival, and they appeased that. This is my point. Yeah. It's bad, I don't like it, but I think Brendan Joyce at the time was like, no, I'm not. She's not coming. She's not coming on tour. Then we're not bringing her. But I think Basketball Australia realised like, oh shit, she's still our star. We need to fix this. And then they fixed it, brought her back in, and it's like, oh, maybe it was okay what I did, you know. So you just got to be real careful to appease. Everyone makes mistakes, you know. But if it's continuous and the ramifications aren't hard enough, which the national team didn't handle well when this all came out. There should have been a public statement. There should have been a release about what she said, rather than it coming out a year later or 2 years later. Nip it in the bud and say, look, she messed up. These were the comments along these lines, and there's severe ramifications. But they appeased, and this is where it shoots you in the butt. You appease this, eventually. Not only is it going to blow up for that player, but it's going to blow up for everyone involved. And this is why Gaze is so fired up, I think. In hindsight, they probably would have handled it differently, but they try to support as much as possible. And her teammates, I know for a fact, I know girls on that team that I've spoken to that went out of their way to try and keep this all in-house, previous indiscretions before the big blow up. Different things on and off the court. They try to keep it in-house and support her, and knew how kind of vulnerable she was to just clicking and snapping, and did everything they could in their power, and then they get shat on at the end of the day. And they know, their voice isn't as big as her. She's got a big media presence, but to say that she's not supported in Australia, I thought it was noteworthy. I thought, that people would want to hear that. I know I've had my battles with her. Like I said numerous times, this is just all factual. But to have Andrew Gaze fired up, you kind of, what time it is, pro.
What time is it, brother?
No, you know what time it is, figure of speech. If Andrew Gaze,
I'm joking.
If Andrew Gaze is fired up, but yeah.
No doubt about it. It's just, look, to be honest, I wouldn't let that happen with anybody if I was running a team. But it ain't like she's Diana Taurasi. It's not like she's Sue Bird.
Yeah, but she's the best Australian female basketball player, right? So that's currently active, right? So they're scared of.
Yeah.
Number one, they're scared of not having her because she's a great player. Number two, they're scared of her media presence. So if she shits on them, she's got a bigger voice than Basketball Australia combined. So it's all those factors, but I agree, it's still not right. You don't appease that kind of behavior.
How many medals have they won since with her on the roster? I have no idea. I'm not sure. I think there's been
a few. I think there's been a few, maybe a bronze or a silver. I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
But there have been a few. But it's still not the point. You've got young kids, young girls coming up through that program that see that her very own teammate is, born in Nigeria and a Nigerian family. That was, mentioned in that interview. So it just sucks. But it was notable because, like I said, Gaze isn't one to go after people and go too harsh on people. But for him to make those comments, because he was affected, he was on the board, so he's been shat on. Some collateral damage, and I don't think he appreciated it. So to see him fired up is one thing, but I think there's some bigger issues. And I don't think she plays for the national team ever again. I think that ship has sailed. I even think with a new board, a new GM, you just can't go back to that now. I think you just rebuild your national team program with the young talent they have and girls that want to be there and represent the country. Gaze is right. We don't get paid. What we do get paid is a per diem. We don't get money. One of the few national teams that I know rugby and a few other teams get paid. We don't. So you're playing for that reason. You're not playing. So I think, we've gone on about it for days, but just something notable from Gaze. But let's get to our useful or useless real quick, and then our fact or fake news and get out of here. I'm going to go NBL, useful or useless pro. We discussed a few of these actually. So, okay, Ian Clark becomes the second NBL player with both an NBL and NBA ring. Useful or useless pro?
Useless, but who was the other guy?
Andrew Gaze.
Just joking. Just joking.
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I wasn't a player, so it's Andrew Gaze actually.
Gazy. Oh, that's right. San Antonio, right?
Come on, man. It's pretty useful for the NBL. It doesn't happen that often. Just to get an NBA talent back into the NBL, like Ian Clark, he was a pretty valuable player for them in that championship run. So
no doubt. My thing is, it's random. It was more random than
yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was saying no. It's awesome, obviously, but
don't backtrack now. Our listeners are going to kill you.
No, I'm not. It's fucking random as fuck. I don't backtrack on anything. First of all, I don't move well laterally or back and forth, so I'm good.
Oh, you can back up. You just got to put the beep 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 noise on.
Beep beep beep. Yeah, no doubt.
All right, Chase Buford becomes the first US coach to win an NBL title since 2009.
I say it's useful.
I think it's useful because it tells you how hard it is. A lot of US coaches struggle. We see what Scott Morrison did with the Perth Wildcats. They didn't even make it. Mm-hmm. But it is an adjustment of a league that, it is refereed differently. It's 40 minutes. FIBA's much more tactical. So I think that's impressive. The guy that won it in 2008-9 was Brian Gorgon with the Dragons. So it's been a long time between drinks. All right, Wani Swakalo-Bullock, who is a defensive stopper. He has 3 NBL rings and he's only 20 years old, pro. Useful or useless?
That's pretty fucking useful. That's pretty good, man. Now, does he play at all? Does he play a lot?
He was our starting defensive stopper. He played about 25 for us, 30 minutes. He got the task of shutting down all the import guards we played against. He was phenomenal for us. He was with the Perth Wildcats. He was more of a role player for them, didn't play a whole lot, but still, three rings at 20, man. You take that, sign me up. So very, very useful.
No doubt.
Makua Maker is the first next star to win a championship in the NBL. Useful or useless?
Useless. It's pretty random. I mean, he's on a championship team.
Yeah,
so
I think it's useless just based on the next star's only been around for. I mean, he's a great player and he had a fantastic rise. Like, he didn't play a lot early, has come along really well for the Sydney Kings the last 2 or 3 months of the season. But yeah, useless in the context of the next star hasn't been around that long. So if it was around for 40 years and he was the first, I'd be like, oh shit, because usually these next star kids are kids that are expecting to come in and play big minutes, a la LaMelo, RJ Hampton, and their teams suck. And the team's just invested in, like, we're going to play this superstar. Hopefully he gets drafted. We get a bit of the buyout money and we're happy. So to have a guy like this come in, play to his role, play well, win a championship, I think it's good. But yeah, next star rule has not been around long enough. Fleur McIntyre becomes the first female NBL champion, pro. Useful or useless? Obviously,
useful.
Our assistant coach.
Yeah, useful for sure.
Useful, it's we love to kind of separate people these days by gender and race and all that stuff. But Fleur is, I don't even look at her as a female coach. I look at her as a coach. She's a gun. Did a phenomenal job for us. Brings kind of a different temperament to our locker room, which I really, really like. She's a thinker. She's done many different things throughout her life, coached a lot of basketball out there in WA, and that was a shout out to Luke Longley for getting her involved with us, because she's been absolutely huge. I will say this on record, sometimes, unfortunately, whether you like it or not, sometimes these hires can be tokenistic. Sometimes teams will do it, not so much in the NBL, but, like workplace and whatever, like try to have the whole equality thing. You're going to get the job because we need to fill a quota.
Right.
Flu is not that lady. She is phenomenal. She's up there with male coaches in the NBL and that I've worked with. So I just want to put that on record that she's phenomenal, because I hate sometimes people think that it's just you're doing it just to fill a spot or whatever. But this was not the case.
Yeah, to me, I just don't like when it's like female coach, black coach, white coach. Like, I just like, she's a coach. She's good.
She's a coach.
Great.
100%.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Let's just keep it moving. No, I think it's useful for sure though. But I just think, hey, look, she's a good coach. She brought value. You guys won a championship. Fuck, that's great. So yeah, that's why I think it's useful.
I agree. I don't want to separate by all these small little details. She's a great coach. Let's leave it at that. Final one would be the Sydney Kings break the NBL Grand Final record. We had 16,149 people at the game, which was great. Useful, useless.
That's useful, Bogues. But, how are you going to deal with that $422,000 charge in your black card? Who's going to divvy that up?
Damn. I don't have a black card, first and foremost. I'm not that silly. But yeah, no, it was a great crowd. It was a great crowd. Yeah. And people that came, we had a lot of first-time fans that came to that Game 3. So you could call them bandwagoners, but so be it. New fans. And they said they're going to be back, because they said holy shit, we didn't know this was going on in Sydney. We didn't know there was, the entertainment. We didn't know there was mascots. We didn't know I could order a beer to my chair in some of the seating. We didn't know. So I think a lot of people got that experience. It's different to our football. Our football is 4, 5, 6 hours by the time you drive down there. The game goes forever. Yeah. You drive back. Basketball, 2-3 hours, in and out, you're home. You're in a warm building or a cold building, depending on the weather outside. It's air-conditioned, it's heated. Very easy to get drinks. Indoors, like I said. So a lot of people have appreciated that. But that is my useful, useless this week, Pro. What do you have for a quick fact or fake news? And then we'll get out of here.
Bogues, let's go quick with this. We'll go first one. Doc Rivers will be the coach of the Sixers next year?
Fake news. I think he's out. Yeah, I think writing's on the wall.
Yeah, you know what I think is going to happen? I think they're going to allow the Lakers to talk to him, and then they're going to ask for like multiple second-round picks to get something for him. I don't think they're going to out and out fire him. I think they're going to let him go if the Lakers want him. I think they're going to let him go and then ask for whatever in exchange. But I don't think he's going to be the coach.
Yeah, I think
the Lakers.
his exit comments kind of said it all to me. I think he's kind of, the white flag was up a little bit to an extent, and I think he's out.
Kyrie Irving will be a Brooklyn Net next year.
Fact, I think, after you've probably led me more down this path, I think, what else are they going to do? I think just based on that, they don't have a lot of flexibility. They made the move for Ben Simmons. What else are you getting? You're not going to get a better player, that's for sure. You just might have to deal with a bit of the shenanigans.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think Irving will be. It's a lot of money for him. I think there would be somebody that tries to get him, but again, cap room and all that. Everybody knows each other. They know it's a pain in the ass, but I think at the end of the day, they're gonna be like, well, what the fuck are we gonna do now? You know what I'm saying? So I think he will be. I think he will be there. And the last, but certainly not least, James Harden will be a Sixer next season.
Fact, based on the same argument. I think, and then probably even more fact than the Kyrie one, just because of the Morey relationship. I think what else are they going to do? I do say fake news on the long term. I agree with the reports. I don't think they're giving him that 5-6 year, whatever it is, a 5 year that he's eligible for. I think it's going to be a tweaked 2 to 3 year maybe, but he will be a Sixer next year, bro.
Yeah, agreed. I definitely think he'll be a Sixer next year as well. I don't think he's going anywhere.
Beautiful. That wraps up another episode of the Rogue Bogues podcast. Pro did his intro, so give us another rating. I think the first one was better, Pro. I got to say, the first one, because I sprung it on you out of nowhere and you were just a little rattled and just went for it.
Yeah.
I think that this one you might have been thinking a little too much. I had to really get this one good, so...
I really didn't think. I thought it was literally a 7-second thought, so... hopefully
that's a long thought for you, though. That's a long thought. Jesus, are you okay?
I graduated with a 2.0. Oh yeah, nothing that 3 or 4 cheese pizzas wouldn't solve. But hopefully this will get me fired from doing them, so I don't have to do that bullshit ever again. But I'll still continue to do them. But
it's all about the fans. If they give us the feedback, we'll let them know. But at Hoop Consultants for Pro, remember he does scouting stuff, video stuff, whatever you need, wherever you are in the world. You can send some clips in, and he can give you his thoughts and breakdowns on different things, whether it's skill sessions, whether it's on-court stuff. Have a look at that on socials at Hoop Consultants, and then at Rogue Bogues, at Andrew Bogut. Have a good one. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.